Hey everybody, let's take a look at how you can build better slides with a few simple tips and tricks. This will help better engage your audience, especially if that audience is a classroom full of students. Let's dive right in today by looking at typography. We're going to start with my first tip, which is try and use just one typeface. Now, I know what you're thinking. When you go into Google Slides or Keynote or PowerPoint and you go to select a font, there's that long list with so many options and so much variation that how can you not want to use a variety of different fonts? Well, that might be interesting for you, but it's going to be distracting for your students. Pick one font and go with it. Sans serif fonts are the best. They're going to be the best for slides because they're clear, they're bold, and they're very easy to read whether the font is large or small. Take a look at these two examples. On the left, I have one typeface for my heading and my 3 bullets. This is a font called Manrope from Google. On the right-hand side, I have 2 different typefaces for my heading and my bullets. And these are kind of distracting, overly embellished system fonts that you might have seen in the past. Definitely the slide on the left is more engaging, clean, and simple to read, while the one on the right is just distracting and frankly just kind of ugly. So definitely stick with one font face and avoid mixing too many fonts together. Here are some of my favorite fonts available on Google Fonts. You can grab these at fonts.google.com and you can add them right to your Google Slides editor. Tip number 2, create a text hierarchy. Now what I mean by this is use font weight, size, and shade or color to create differentiation between your headers and your titles, your body, and your bullet. Try and focus on using heavier weights with darker colors for titles and headings, and then use smaller, thinner, lighter colors for your body text. Here's an example. These 2 slides are both using the same font. However, the one on the left, I've used a heavier font weight for the heading in a slightly darker color, and a lighter weight with a lighter color for the bullets. And you can see it has created a hierarchy between my title or my main point and my supporting information. The one on the right looks fine, but I can't really tell what's important. It doesn't look designed or thought out. So definitely use weight, size, and shade to create differentiation between your content. As you can see, most font faces come in a variety of weights, sometimes as many as 10 or more. Of course, you can choose the size. I suggest you stick to a minimum of 32 points, if not bigger, to make sure your slide is legible from a full classroom. And then a good tip with color is to pick a nice dark gray for your headings, and then use that same color for your bullets, but just give the bullets a little bit of transparency so they appear somewhat lighter, but still feel like they're in the same color family. Tip number 3, lay out your slides with a focus on legibility. We want to be mindful of spacing and contrast, and we want to enhance readability by using appropriate line spacing, kerning, which is the amount of space between the actual letters or characters, appropriate paragraph breaks, and overall slide layout. We want to be mindful of how readable this content is when we're designing this. So let's take a look at 2 slides again. On the left here, I have my title in a nice heavy font and a dark color, and I've actually kerned the letters together. They're at about a -2% kerning, and that means that the characters are slightly pulled closer to one another to create a cleaner look. Then I've added a nice amount of white space after the title, and then my 3 bullets are equally spaced out with enough white space so that I can read them easily and I'm not distracted. But on the right, my title is kerned out, which means the letters are widely separated. And it might look cool, but it's much harder to read and harder for the brain to understand when the letters are so widely spaced. Additionally, my 3 bullets are really tightly packed, and so they're not distinguishable from one another in a really quick and easy way. So it's not a very good design. Next, we want to be mindful not only of the spacing, but also contrast. And here I'm talking about color. So be sure that there's adequate contrast between the background color or image and the text so that legibility doesn't become an issue. Here I have white text with dark colored font and it's super easy to read. While on the right side, I have a colored background with the same color fonts, but they just kind of disappear. They're swallowed up by the background color. That's not a good design, and your users are not going to be able to quickly and easily see what you're talking about. You can certainly use dark colored slides like the one on the left here, but again, make sure you're focused on contrast and use bright white for your headings and just a subtle color for your body text so that it's still legible and jumps out off the slide. Definitely here, the slide on the right in blue is just not readable at all. And these two slides, the color, it looks nice, but the text is illegible, making the slides useless. If you are going to use colored slides, you can do so. Here's a good tip. Again, your headings can be white or some bright color, but then take your body text and make it white as well, but give it about a 70 or 75% transparency. And that will make it distinguishable from the heading text, and it will also allow some of the background color to bleed through, making it look overall more designed. So let's take a look at a slide from start to finish and what I've done to it to go from boring and standard out-of-the-box design to a much more readable and nicely designed appearance. Here we go. It's a simple slide with 3 bullets on it and a title, and right now it's using just a built-in default font. I believe this is Arial font. So the first thing I'm going to do is work on that heading a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and change that to a more interesting font. I've made it a bold Google font, again called Manrope. Now I'm going to change my body text to Manrope as well. And you'll see everything has already spread out a little bit, and that's because this typeface is spaced a little more than Arial is. The next thing I want to do is kern my title together a little bit and lighten the color of my bullets so there's some differentiation or contrast between the title and the body. Then I'm going to space them out a little bit by adding white space after the header, and then pull together the line height of my bullets. But don't worry, we're going to then separate each bullet a little bit so they're distinguishable from one another. Then I'm going to indent my bullets so none of the text is hanging off to the left. And then finally, I'm going to make my bullets a little bit smaller and a little bit more subtle. One more thing I can do here is make some of the key terms from my bullets stand out. So for example, I'll make the terms igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks a slightly darker color and a little heavier font. And now the user knows what to focus in on within each bullet. And there you have it. In about 2 minutes, I went from an ugly, undesigned standard slide to a much more engaging and legible slide. And I could simply flip-flop the colors on this and turn it into a dark-colored slide, which would look equally good. So that's our first lesson in building better slides. Be sure to check back for future videos where I cover things like images, iconography, illustrations, tables, and more. Thanks for watching.